Hello everyone, I'm Lex from Dead Gentry on Etsy and eBay. William and I like to make these little videos as well on YouTube, obviously. Dead Gentry Collectibles on YouTube, but Dead Gentry on Etsy and eBay. And I wanted to talk a little bit about something I always get asked for more information on, silver and silver plate. So here is an interesting object. This is an 1870s, and I say 1870, this particular piece was made between 1870 and 1885, discontinued absolutely prior to 1900, a Reed Barton silver-plated teapot. And it's actually not a teapot, it's a hot water pot. Now here's an interesting story. No one can know everything. Part of the joy of being a collector or someone who's involved in collecting for collectors is not being able to learn as you move forward with each new object that you come across. So this is a Victorian, it's an antique. And if you see down here these numbers, 2407, you see that? That's a pattern number. Now that I knew, but to find out what this 5 underneath meant, I actually had to reach out to the company itself, to the people who still hold the record catalogs for the older Reed Barton Silverplate Victorian pieces. Because obviously the little 5, it's not like as if someone's hand slipped and that 5 just appeared down here by accident. So I didn't know what that meant. So I was able to learn about it by reaching out to the company. And now I get to share this with all of you. That little number 5 means that this is a hot water pot. So oddly enough, if it were number 7, it would demarcate a coffee pot. A number 6, maybe you're looking at a similar piece, and instead of a number 5 down below, it has a number 6. That's a teapot. But a number 5, from when this pattern was created, denotes it as being for hot water only. Not intended for tea, not intended for coffee. Just intended to hold and carry hot water. As you can see, the handle's a little bit different. It's sturdier. And then also the lower profile of the spout here. So just interesting, if you're a Reed Barton collector, now you know a little bit more about that, what those marks mean. If you're into looking for wonderful silver, sterling silver, silver-plated objects, perhaps to resell to others, a little bit more information on a Victorian Reed Barton piece. Now, these generally sell between, I want to say $50 to $80. It really depends on 2 things. Condition, good condition, worth more, generally. And also desirability. Desirability is this kind of vague term that we use in this industry for how desirable an object actually is to the purchaser of that object. It's kind of like when you hear people discuss when someone who maybe wants to become an actor or a celebrity of some kind, when we talk about people having it, quote unquote, it, right? No one really knows what it is, but a talent agent is very good at spotting the vague it, knowing that someone will possibly or probably do well in the future in a celebrity or popularized career format. So when we talk about desirability, it's kind of like when you're talking about people having it. When an object has, quote unquote, it has desirability. It's something you get a feel for over time. I don't have a better way of expressing it. One way you can think about it is, would you really want to own it? And if you're a collector, would you ever be willing to part with it after owning it? If the answer is yes, I'd really want to own it, and no, I wouldn't want to part with it after collecting it or adding it to my collection, then it probably has desirability. What's desirable for you is probably desirable for someone else as well. So that's one way to think about it. In the case of this teapot, I would say the desirability is increased by 2 things mainly. It has these lovely ivy etchings. See these etched into the metal, this pattern that moves through here with these leaves, and they come up across the top as well. See this? I would say that adds desirability, simply because not all pieces made in this time had that. Many are blank, many don't include etchings on them. So that adds a little bit to the desirability. And then these figurals, you see this lovely lion figural up here. Actually a ram, now that I take a closer look at it, almost a two-dimensional ram, possibly a lion. He does have that very Victorian mane coming down. But again, the claw foot as well below. So figurals like this, more detailed scroll works. And then I would say this as well, that headwind figural. This adds to the desirability of this object, this beautiful crowned headwind right at the base of the spout every time it's poured. Really lovely. Things like that can make an object more desirable and therefore worth more. But again, it's something you get a feel for. Now, what lowers the value of this object? The actual condition. So here you see damage. This is damage. My guess, unfortunately, I've seen many pieces like this, is somewhere between the 30s to the 60s when they were quite common and popular. Someone took a wire brush or scrub pad of some kind to this object, possibly trying to remove tarnish. It's unfortunate. I see it like a Brillo pad. It happens. And I say that because, one, this is the kind of damage it results in. And when you think of someone scrubbing on this, how you actually see some of it worn here as well. So they were scrubbing at this line probably to remove tarnish. When they realized what was going on, they stopped. Because as you see, it comes a little bit to here, and then maybe they rinsed it, saw the damage, and stopped before doing it to this side as well. And then didn't scrub at this side with wire or a wire pad. So unfortunately, I've seen that a lot. And you can almost always tell because it'll be on one area and nowhere else, because someone will go, oh no, I'm wrecking it, and stop. So that's unfortunate. That reduces the value of silver plate and sterling silver when there is actual damage like this that can then not be restored. So again, I was saying generally between $50 to $80, depending on condition, depending on desirability. Older Victorian pieces like this tend to do a little bit better, especially say a Reed and Barton hot water pot or teapot, because it falls into multiple categories. It falls into a category for Victorian object collectors because it's older. It's a Victorian antique. Some people collect those. Whether, it's a vase or a teapot, doesn't matter. They want Victorian era items. So it falls into that category. It also falls into a very popular category, Reed and Barton. There are Reed and Barton collectors. Reed and Barton is a very popular silversmith. Many people collect them. And then it also falls into the teapot, hot water pot, antique vintage coffee pot category as well, for which there are collectors that, regardless of era or maker, are interested in collecting those items. All of that helps to increase value. When an object falls into multiple categories, you have a higher, or I should say a broader audience, generally, that's then going to desire it, to want to purchase it from you if you're a seller. And as you know, if you're a collector, you now have more competition to get those beautiful pieces into your collections. So really good condition. If this were in perfect condition, $80. That maybe helps give you a little bit of an idea of what something like this is worth. I've seen whole sets go for $325, and not in an auction setting, not in a charity auction setting, not where bidders are played against each other, just flat out pricing $325. When I say whole set, Victorian era Reed and Barton sets, to be a full set, it would require 2 main vessels and a cream and sugar. And when I say main vessels, so a teapot and a coffee pot, or coffee pot and a hot water pot, and then a cream and sugar. They just tended to be sold 4 pieces, cream, sugar, and then 2 larger or main vessels in a complete set. Those tend to go for $325 in good condition as of, actually they haven't changed much in the last 10 years. So now, and 10 years previous to this, around $325. There's also beautiful coffee urns. If you have a chance to Google a Reed and Barton silver coffee urn on a stand, especially the older Victorian pieces, absolutely breathtaking, really beautiful. They'll go for $300 by themselves. To give you an idea, again, we talk about the provenance of an object, worth and value. So there's that would be the value of the object. And then, Origin, Reed Barton Silversmiths, that's an American silversmith company that's sold internationally, so that gives you its origin, circa Victorian times. So I don't, if you've ever been to, when a host is serving coffee en masse or tea en masse to a large group, in a large group setting, say, like 50 guests or more. So you have these large silver canisters. In modern times, they have the little black pull lever pour spouts for hot water, so that you have a large canister of hot water on call for everyone, perhaps for tea or coffee. Those have been around forever, although they haven't always had the little black plastic pull levers. In Victorian times, they were silver or silver plate. They stood on stands just as they do today, and for the exact same reason. Having hot water on call, whether for coffee or tea, has always been important culturally. So some of the larger, older Reed Barton coffee urns, which are kind of the same shape as far as a standing silver canister, will have amazing figural work. So sometimes you'll see 4 or 6 women, where the stand itself at the corners is women then holding the coffee urn up. So, and that's a separate piece. And those will go for $300. They're beautiful. So I've seen them as much as 2 feet tall. Just really incredible pieces. Something to look out for. And when we talk about Victorian pieces, I don't mean Victorian style, which is a term sellers have to use on eBay. eBay kind of pigeonholes the seller into using terms and filling out certain forms in certain ways. If you use that site or buy from that site, now you know. When it says style, that doesn't mean that that's the authentic provenance or age of an object. It means it's done in that style. Something can be done in a mid-century style in 2020. It doesn't have to come from 1940 to look like it's come like from a set from Mad Men. So when it says style or revival, that doesn't mean that it's actually from, if something says Egyptian revival, obviously, it doesn't mean it's from ancient Egypt. It means it's done in an ancient Egyptian style, or perhaps an Art Deco or Nouveau revival style of older Egyptian influences. So you have to think about these things. Now, if someone says it's ancient Egyptian, or it's Edwardian, or it's Victorian, and doesn't say Victorian revival or Victorian style, what it means when someone says it's actually just Victorian, and what it should always mean, for those of you who are using this term out there, possibly as sellers, is that it was created and used during Queen Victoria's reign. Literally, that is what it has to mean for you to call a piece Victorian. This piece is Victorian. Again, I reached out to the company. It was created between 1870 and 1885. It was discontinued before 1900. Queen Victoria's reign, so the Victorian period, 1837 to 1901. So if you think about that, 1837 to 1901, and this was created between 1870 and 1885. That's what makes this particular little hot water pot Victorian. And when you call something Victorian, that is what you are saying, that it was made and used possibly in those years, that it comes from that time period. And Victorian pieces must have authentic provenance that places them between, again, 1837 and 1901 in order to be called Victorian. I don't mean to sound repetitive or lectury, preachy. I have friends that watch this channel. One of the things a few of them have asked me to do is to repeat certain terms more than once, and repeat things like numbers and dates and pattern names, because some people learn that way. They need it repeated a couple times for the information to kind of sink in. So again, Victorian period, if you forget, Queen Victoria's reign. Okay, that's literally what it means. Was the object made between 1837 and 1901? That is what the term means. It doesn't mean Victorian style revival, and it doesn't mean what you think, Victorian time is based on some Downton Abbey influence. It doesn't mean that. It means when Queen Victoria sat the throne. A little more on Reed Barton. Reed Barton, again, very popular silversmith, highly collectible, manufacturer based. Everyone from UMass is about to cringe. Is it Taunton? Massachusetts. They're wincing inside as I mispronounce the city's name. But Reed and Barton, from that city, from Mass, operating between 1824 to 2015, and they made sterling silver. This object is silver plate, so they made silver plate. They also made flatware, quite a few utensils. They made stemware. They made lead crystal. They made glasses. And they also made wood. So one of the questions I get asked is, what should I be looking for that other people aren't necessarily looking for? Say you're at an auction with a large lot and there's Reed Barton mixed into different lots or in a large lot, or you're at an estate sale. Perhaps someone has Reed Barton objects in the home. Why everyone else is diving for, say, the very popular Reed Barton Silverplate bowls with the bright enamels inside, those reds and vivid yellows and bright blues and turquoises, absolutely beautiful, those aquamarines. Those are very popular, and yes, if you can get those, they're amazing. But everyone knows them, everyone's looking for them. So why everyone's looking for that, or perhaps they get snatched up or auctioned very high very quickly, perhaps out of your price range as a collector, one of the things you could be looking for that other people don't know to look for is Reed and Barton wooden objects. They made beautiful antique and vintage wooden objects as well. So when everyone else is looking for the silver plate or the mid-century modern bowls, those MCM enamel bowls, or, diving for the shelf of silverware, perhaps sterling silverware, you could be looking around, especially if there are a few objects in a home that are Reed and Barton. You might be in the home of a collector who would have known this. Look for some wooden objects. Reed and Barton made beautiful cigar humidors. They made carrying chests and smaller boxes, beautiful wooden boxes for things like their older pens and small metal objects, things of that nature. The boxes themselves, which would have been sold separately, they would have had to be purchased separately. They didn't often come with them. A collector might have that in a home. An auction lot might have these other pieces near silver pieces. Very often, these sorts of things tend to wind up near or sold near each other. There could be also a beautiful antique box to hold things like the sterling silver service. So while everyone else is trying to get the utensils, look around and see if you haven't seen it displayed that way, perhaps by the selling agent or the person in charge of the auction. Maybe it's another part of the lot and it's not being grouped correctly with the sterling silver service. See if you can find a box, a wooden box, because often Reed and Barton made beautiful wooden products. So pro tip, people always ask me, what should I be looking for? Give me an insider's track. I know to look for those sorts of things when I'm going to estate sales, when I'm going to auctions. I don't always let all my focus get pulled to where everyone else's is, and it's just a little more information. It should hopefully help you. Reed and Barton also made quite a bit of weaponry for the Union Army soldiers and officers during the American Civil War. So, I don't know what I just said, Civil War. So if you're in, say, an estate sale, a selling agent is doing a large estate sale, you might look for the weapons room. If you're seeing things like the mid-century modern enamel Reed and Barton bowls on a shelf right up front where everyone's looking to bid at them, or perhaps at a silent charity auction, something along those lines, look around for the weapons room. There's a possibility that a collector of things like those mid-century modern bowls, those MCM bowls, might also have Reed and Barton weaponry in the home as part of their collection, possibly things like silver bayonets, objects along those lines. So that's another thing you could be looking for that maybe not everyone else is. And I know for our weapons collectors out there, this is the sort of thing they love to know about. So I don't know. Reed and Barton has kind of an intense history. Most silver manufacturers do, especially in America. There tends to be a lot of intertwining of companies and stolen names and companies marrying other companies. And it can all be a little bit confusing. But flatware, wooden chests, the Sheffield collection from 1908, because Reed and Barton, then up until 1973, Things like humidors, again, silver bells with wooden handles where the entire piece has been crafted by Reed Barton. These are things to watch out for as stemware, lead glass. That could be in the same auction lot as, say, a Reed Barton silver teapot, excuse me. And there has been a surge, along with things like sterling silver, silver plates, platters, all of those items, the ones that everyone usually looks for. And a lot of people are collecting Reed Barton right now, so hopefully this gives you a little bit of help and maybe finding some of the other objects that people aren't immediately looking for, as well as giving you an idea of what something like this is. Oh, one more little fact about these. If you have something similar, come across it. So I know I told you what that little 5 meant versus 6 and 7 down there, but this other number here, can you see this? This 2407. It's right above where I'm moving my thumb back and forth. That is the pattern line number. So back then, when you're dealing with Victorian Reed Barton pieces and a lot of the silversmith pieces, whether it's Reed Barton or some other silver manufacturer, they didn't have names. So they wouldn't have named this pattern, say, Cambridge Ivy, right? Or Sheffield, from the Sheffield collection. They didn't give them names like that. They gave them numbers. That is what that number means. It is the pattern number. Okay, I hope that helps everyone. Cheers.